The following is a short clip from our conversation with the founders of ethical fashion brand Apparis for the Beyond Fashion Business podcast. Apparis is a fashion brand that is redefining ethical fashion. They offer elevated alternatives to luxury animal-derived products like leather and faux fur, and have multiple famous investors like supermodel Karlie Kloss. Apparis is a perfect case study for any fashion entrepreneurs or designers that aspire to build the ethical brands of the future, or at least learn how to become a more ethically conscious brand.
Understood. And if you could identify the biggest challenges of having an ethical fashion brand, let's say the top three biggest challenges for you guys, right? Specifically, because everybody will have a different process. But what would you say would be the first off, the biggest challenge, number one, second challenge, third challenge? Would it be first product, right? Getting the product right and getting the product right at scale reliability. Secondly, financing. Third, team management. What would you put it? What you put it under?
It's interesting because again, I think, and not to send ourselves flowers, I think we're doing a pretty good job as far as product. If anything, again, for us, where we've had, I think, challenges is how to educate, how to communicate on that with our customer without like almost like teaching her, make her feel, like a little bit too conscious. Wait, am I not like, do I only have to shop a certain way if I end up, maybe buying something from another brand that's not as conscious as Apparis? Like, we don't want to alienate the customer. And I think that again, so more our communication and how we communicate on all of our pillars, again, about being bold, trendy, but also conscious and like attainable. It's like, what is the best way to talk about that, because it's also very sensitive and I feel like controversial topic in the fashion industry, because there is a lot of brainwashing, or there's a lot of not being super transparent. So I think that from my perspective on the more marketing creative, that I think has been, if anything, the biggest challenge.
Yeah, from my perspective, number one, two, and three is the cost.
I like it different. I like it different. So you can tell very clearly the difference of responsibility.
No, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Like it's here's the issue here is there's obviously an extra cost at our brand level into being ethical. There's an extra cost into the production, the product itself. We know that the fabrics that we're using are more expensive. We are also limited into sourcing other factories because we want from like a social perspective that we want to be able to vet the factories that are making our garment. We want to make sure that employees are being treated fairly and so on. So like the number of factories that we can use is quite limited. And the packaging that we use as we're also becoming more and more focused on our ethical, I would say, journey, or our road to being more and more ethical as a brand, it's the packaging is it's more expensive. So the issue here is that we're like really committed into the value proposition of our product. So we cannot increase retail prices to the extent that our cost to manufacture ethical goods is increasing, right? And I'm not even talking about inflation and all the other costs that increased in the past few years. So it's really like we have to be like always like very smart into protecting our gross margin. And we don't really know any other way, because we're not like a brand like we were one day we woke up and we're like, oh, like let's be sustainable. Like we created the brand because we wanted to create something ethical and sustainable and all those things. So it was the initial the initial idea of the brand. So, but it's always been like from a financial perspective, it's always been like something that we watch really closely, and how we're not like there are brands out there that are ethical and sustainable. Like we're often mentioned Stella McCartney. That's a great brand, and she's has it embedded into her brand. Sustainability is like really core to her brand, and it's beautiful, but her price point is so much higher than the price point that we have. So obviously for us, it's like it can be, you know, it can be tricky to offer an ethical product at this price point.
And especially when you mention, new categories and new product, it doesn't like it has to align with, again, how ethical and conscious our outerwear offering is right now. And it's like, how can we translate that in other product that, would make sense for not only the brand, but our existing customer.
Of course. Okay. And so just to summarize, make sure that I understood correctly, from one end, it's been communicating the brand in the right way. At the end of the day, perception is reality, especially in this industry, right? And there's little control that you have as a startup brand in terms of the perception that the customers are having with the brand. You can control your product, right? But at the end of the day, what happens in between the product and the customer relies on a lot of different things, right? What's going on social media, what are the external parties saying, how can you put it how can you put the communications in the same standard as the product, right? So all of these different things affect the ability of customers to be educated and to perceive the brand as it's supposed to be. And secondly, just again, making sure that financially everything is viable, right? The communications, the products, and the evolution of those things at the same time.
Well, right.
Perfect. And how did you navigate this? Because I'm guessing in a very similar way, these were the same challenges very early on. It's just they've evolved, right? But how did you navigate this in the early days? Like, was having one product an easier way to did it make the communication easier? And from a financial perspective, especially if you were being bootstrapped, how did you navigate all this complexity?
A lot of work.
Yeah, I think from from purely financial perspective, when it did evolve and the challenges evolved, but the core, the essence of it remained the same. I think when we started, it wasn't that visible because, as I said, it was just Lauren and I were eating canned soup every day. I mean, it was, or we made all the sacrifices, we were committed to it. We knew we had to get it off the ground, and we did all the jobs, we opened all the boxes, we shipped, we were ourselves. Yeah, it was, but great memories of it, by the way. And I think it was really important.
In hindsight, it's like high school, right? Yeah. It's like everybody thinks high school was better than what it actually was. Yeah.
Even on the moment, I think it was great. I think it was a great period because listen, we had nothing to lose.
Exactly. So everything was a win too.
So
every little thing.
And as I just said, we had nothing to lose. But now we're a team. We have people, and we value them, and we want them to be happy in their job. And we have factory partners, we have deadlines, we have all those things, and obviously the cost structure increased with that, and also the quality, I would say, overall of our product. We're a lot more mindful of the details and what do you call that, the trims and the stuff. So,
and that's due to competition too. Again, when we entered the market in 2018, really I felt our product was standing out. So fast forward about what you said, I think for us a big challenge now is to make sure we are always, I don't know if it's not above, but ahead of, the curve when it comes to this outerwear, trendy, anything that's ethical, vegan, alternative fabrics. So that's also something I feel like it is a new challenge because we want to be, and we still want to be the leader and the one that comes with the novelty first, and that gets, trickier when the bigger brands, right, kind of, so what we've been doing, and, sometimes they can move faster because of the resource that they have, that we don't have. But I think it's a good challenge too. And I think, like Amélie talking about the team, we're a small team, but we're so all passionate about the mission and what we do and the challenges that I think, if anything, I feel like we look at them as just not really challenges, but opportunities for sure.
Okay, understood. And so essentially keeping costs low, right? Business costs and personal costs mainly. And secondly would be finding ways to get the product to the standard where you want to get it. Because from what I understand at the initial stages of the brand, it was about building the right infrastructure, right?
Mhm.
Financially speaking, from a process perspective, from a product perspective. And when you got all of that right, the product essentially, as you said, started carrying the entire brand forward, right? Because it was getting so much demand. So it shifted from, okay, how do we build an infrastructure that allows us to build a product that people want and build it in a way where we can consistently pursue that, right? Without going bankrupt or whatever. And then when we get the demand is how do we start channeling that demand in a productive way?
So it's actually, that's, I think, the way you would think it would happen. For us, it happened a little bit differently. We were together, Paris 1.0. We presented our first collection, and within a few weeks, we had literally landed orders from hundreds and hundreds of stores. We didn't even have, just to give you an idea, an iPad. We had paper, carbon copy paper of orders. So we had this stack of orders, like physical stack of orders. And we looked at each other and were like, well, what now? Like we need to manufacture, we need to deliver those orders. We need these people who like trusted us to place an order to, we need to deliver it to them, and we want them to become clients for the future. So that really happened in that way when we had this like huge demand upfront, and then we had to build within a few weeks, literally, an infrastructure that could support not only the demand that we like had at the moment, but also demand like
Long term.
building long term. So because you don't build operations for every year. So so that was a challenge, but that's something I think we managed to do quite efficiently. We build operations that are still, you know, supporting us to this day, and are probably going to support us, like processes that will support us in the future.
Yeah. So yeah, it's almost like at stage one, the biggest responsibility of the founders is to figure stuff out until they get that level of demand. Secondly, is to build the infrastructure and the operations that can sustain that level of demand. And the third one is all just essentially, how do we do that better?
Right.
Yeah.
So we're in the better phase right now.
Sounds like a good stage to be in, finally, right?
Yeah,
Superficially, right? The reality is always different, right? If anybody can learn anything about this industry, everything looks a lot better than it actually is in reality. Interesting. Okay. And take me about building that infrastructure. Like, did you start raising investment at that fund? Like when you got that demand, you had around, and you used the finances to start building a basic team around that, or was it still bootstrapped, just using the profits?
So I made a couple of phone calls. A few of my industry connection from my past corporate life became really not only useful, but like allowed us to build this business. So I think my first call was to Josh at Hilden. They're to this day our factoring company, and the call was literally, "Hey Josh, we got a bunch of orders from great stores, but we don't have any money. Will you back us?" And so he came. He actually made the trip to Williamsburg. We were in Williamsburg at the time. Looked at one of our codes, and he said, "Yes, we'll back you. We'll finance your first production, basically." And so that was that. That was I think that was really important, and really we knew we could go ahead, like move ahead. So obviously we needed people, but we didn't have money. Even if they were financing our project, we still didn't have any money for people. We didn't have an office also. So we hired anyone who would be willing to work as a low-paid intern, right? Like
Sounds really bad.
But they're like, listen, most of them became employees after we made it right to them, but they're like, they really trusted us. So interns, and we started we printed all the vendor guides from all the department stores, because at the time we had orders from Bloomingdale's, Saks, and all, Shopbop and all with
Majors.
all majors, and no idea how to ship those. So we started reading their guides, and I think the next step operationally was to find a 3PL provider. And at the time, we went to the 3PL that actually fulfilled for most up and coming brands. So we're just Bergen Logistics. So that was the second call, and they said, okay, but you're small, you're very small. I don't know if you'll exist next year. So we had to ask a favor. That was like a real favor. Please take us in. We need you. Yeah. And so they accepted. And then we got going with the operation. We got a software that was very entry-level software. And yeah, I think that our first year was just like, this is how we started. We worked really, really hard.
First 2 years.
We didn't know what we didn't know, which is hard, because when you know what you don't know, it's it's already the first step. But there's a bunch of things we just didn't know, and we didn't know to ask or anything. So, but that's truly the first year how we managed to create some operation.
Okay.
I would just add on from my side what I think, if it's an advice or something that I think really help, is really finding the right factory and partner. We also, I met this Franco-Chinese man, met him in Paris, and it was kind of the same when Amélie, went to Hilden and say, hey, we have a bunch of order. Can you back us? On my end, it's going to Paris, and hey, his name is Christian. We have a tons of order. You're gonna need to help me, because I'm not a design background person. I'm a creative and I'm a strong product person, but they also really having that trust and that relationship with the factory, which I visited the first year, went to China, spent a couple weeks there. And I also think it was really a game changer, and it really helped.
For sure.
The first seasons, and with production, and like you said, importing goods from China to the US for us, and booking, freight. They were really good partners, and I do think it allow us to, be confident and keep going and growing.